Hey everyone! Welcome to Korean with Miss Vicky. Today I had a haircut and went from this to this. And before having a haircut, I called a hair salon and made a reservation. And I recorded the entire conversation we had over the phone. And in this video, we will listen to that recorded conversation together. And after that, I will break down each sentence so that every single word makes sense to you. I will play it for 2 rounds. In the first round, you will listen with the Korean transcript. And in the second round, you will listen with both the Korean transcript and the English translation on the screen.
연결 중입니다. 네, 반갑습니다. 아이디입니다.
저 오늘 커트 예약하려고 하는데요.
네, 몇 시로요?
혹시 오전 중으로 되나요?
오전 중에 한 10시 반 괜찮으실까요?
네, 그럼 10시 반까지 갈게요.
한 번만 하시는 거죠?
네네.
성함이 어떻게 되실까요?
심효정이요.
오신 적이 있으세요?
네, 있어요.
고객 핸드폰 뒷자리가 어떻게 되실까요?
저 2601요.
심효정 고객님이시라고 했죠?
네네.
네, 일단 10시 반으로 예약 도와드릴게요.
네네, 감사합니다.
네. 연결 중입니다. 네, 반갑습니다. 아이디입니다.
저 오늘 커트 예약하려고 하는데요.
네, 몇 시로요?
혹시 오전 중으로 되나요?
오전 중에 한 10시 반 괜찮으실까요?
네, 그럼 10시 반까지 갈게요.
한 번만 하시는 거죠?
네네.
성함이 어떻게 되실까요?
심효정이요.
오신 적이 있으세요?
네, 있어요.
고객 핸드폰 뒷자리가 어떻게 되실까요?
저 2601요.
심효정 고객님이시라고 했죠?
네네.
네, 일단 10시 반으로 예약 도와드릴게요.
네네, 감사합니다.
네.
So first of all, this conversation is between 미용사, the hairdresser, and 손님, a customer. 미용 is a Korean word that refers to beauty or beauty treatment in general. But when we say 미용실, this word usually refers to a hair salon rather than beauty salon in general. And you can also say hair shop for a hair salon, which comes from the English words hair and shop. And likewise, 미용사 also refers to a person who works with hair, so hairdressers. And the word 손님 can mean either a guest or a customer, depending on the context. And here, it is used to mean a customer who wants to receive services at a hair salon. You can also say 고객 for customers, and the hairdresser actually uses this word at one point in the recorded conversation. And we'll learn more about this word in detail when we get to that part. When the hairdresser picks up the phone, she says, 네, 반갑습니다. 뜨르뜨뜨 헤어입니다. Here, the hairdresser's 네 is used to indicate to the caller that she has received a call. You can also say 여보세요, which is commonly used for hello over the phone. So many people say 네, 여보세요 when answering a call. And in this case, the hairdresser says 반갑습니다, which is typically used when meeting someone for the first time. And since they cannot know who exactly is calling, they just assume it might be a new customer and answer the phone this way. And then she mentions their business name to let the caller know where they're calling. 땡땡 헤어입니다. And 손님 says, 저 오늘 커트 예약하려고 하는데요. So 저 means I, 오늘, today. So she indicates she would like to make a reservation for today. And 커트 is a word for haircut in Korean. And it does come from the English word cut. So you can say 머리를 자르다, literally to cut hair for getting a haircut. But in the context of hair salon, the term 커트 is more commonly used. And 커트 is a noun that means haircut, and its verb form would be 커트하다. Other than this, for getting a hair perm, you can use 파마. So 파마하다. And for dyeing your hair, you can use 염색. 염색하다. And for 예약하려고 하는데요. To break this down, it's a combination of 예약하다, which means to make a reservation or to book, and 으려고 하다, which means to intend to or plan to. And it conveys the customer's intention for calling the hairdresser. And it can be translated as I would like to here in this context. And 는데요 is an ending that indicates that you are expecting the other person's response. 네, 몇 시로요? 몇 시 means what time. 몇 is a question word for how many or what number. And 시 marks the hour unit time. So it's like o'clock in English, like 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. And please don't get mixed up with 몇 시간, which means how many hours. So 몇 시 is asking for what time, and 몇 시간 is asking about the duration, how many hours, not the exact time. And the particle 으로 is used here. And 으로 actually has many usages. And here it is used to indicate choice or agreement. So 으로 is commonly used when setting an appointment time because arranging appointments often involves mutual agreement, right? 혹시 오전 중으로 되나요? 혹시 literally means by any chance, and it's often used when asking questions, when you're about to start a question. And its literal meaning is by any chance, but it really doesn't have a special meaning in practice, and it's mainly used to make your questions sound more polite. And then she says, 오전 중으로. So 오전 actually has two meanings. First one, the AM time as opposed to PM time. AM is represented as 오전 and PM represented as 오후. And the second meaning it has is more practical usage. So in everyday life, a lot of Korean people use 오전 to refer to the morning time between 9 a.m. and noontime, 12 p.m. So it's a bit different from 아침 in that 아침 is a broader term for morning. So 아침 would be any time between 6 a.m. to 12 p.m., whereas 오전 is a more narrow and specific time of the morning. And 중 means middle or among. So 오전 중 means among morning time. 으로, we learned the usage of 으로 in the context of making time agreements. So I'll pass this. 오전 중으로 되나요? So 되다 has many meanings and its primary meaning is to become something, but it's also used to mean that something works, something is possible or acceptable. So 되나요 means like, does it work? Is it possible? And this 나요 is a question ending that can only be attached to verbs when the question is in present tense. It's also okay to just simply conjugate the verb in the present tense and add a question mark to ask a question, like 돼요. 돼 is 되다's present tense form. But another way to ask a question is by adding a specific question ending, like 나요. So there is no change in meaning between the two, but 나요, asking a question with 나요, does sound a bit more polite. But that doesn't mean asking a question using the first method is impolite, and you can generally interchangeably use both. 오전 중에 한 10시 반 괜찮으실까요? So 오전 중에, among morning time, 에 is used as a time marker here. And 한 is an adverb that means about, around, or approximately. And 10시 반 means 10:30. We learned that 시 is used to mark the hour unit time, and it should be combined with native Korean numbers to indicate time. So for 10 o'clock, you can combine 열, which is a native Korean number for 10, and 시. So 10시 means 10 o'clock. And when it comes to 분, the minute unit time, this time it's the opposite. It should be used with Sino-Korean numbers. So 30 in Korean is 30. So you can say 30분 for 30. And another word that you can use interchangeably with 30분 is 반. 반 means half. So by saying 10시 반, it means 10:30. You cannot say 10시 반분 though. When using 반, you should use 반 alone, not attaching it with another counter. And 괜찮으실까요? Actually, the 괜찮으실까요 part is grammatically incorrect, but this is one of the common mistakes made by a lot of native speakers simply because they want to sound politer. So before we learn the correct versions, let's learn about 을까요's usages first. It has mainly 3 usages. First one is when proposing to the listener, like, shall we do this? And in this case, it can only be used with a verb, and the expected answer to this is usually either 네, 아니요, or 좋아요. Like, 영화 볼까요? Shall we watch a movie? And the second one, the second usage of 을까요 is asking about the other person's opinion. And in this case, it can be used with all verbs, adjectives, and 이다. So if you say 이 영화 재미있을까요? It means, do you think this movie would be fun? And the third usage is making speculation. And in this case, it's best translated as I wonder, blah, blah, blah. And it's used when you don't necessarily expect the other person to know the answer. So in this case, it's often used as a rhetorical question or in self-talk as well. 나는 왜 이렇게 피곤할까? Why am I so tired? So now that we learned 3 usages of 을까, let's look at the reason why 괜찮으실까요 is grammatically incorrect. It's because, first of all, 괜찮다 is an adjective, not a verb, so it cannot be used to convey a proposal, right? Because in that case, it should only be used with a verb. So it's not used with the usage number 1. So it's either used for asking for someone's opinion or for speculation. But normally, when asking if a specific time works for the other person, you're not seeking a detailed opinion, right? Neither are you making speculation, but rather you're expecting a yes or no answer. So 10시 반 괜찮으실까요? Doesn't actually make sense grammatically. However, many native speakers use 으실까요 a lot in like any kind of questions because they unconsciously think that sounds more polite. So when native speakers use 을까요 in a wrong way grammatically, just understand that's how a lot of native speakers say it. It's their common verbal habit. But as a Korean learner, as a non-native learner, it's best to avoid using it in this manner. And now, let's take a look at grammatically correct alternatives for this. You can either say 10시 반 괜찮으세요? Using the 으세요 ending by conjugating the 시다 honorific verb. Or you can also say 10시 반 괜찮으신가요? So we learned about the verb 나요 ending earlier, right? And the 은가요 ending is also a question ending for present tense adjectives and also 이다. So you can say 오늘 더운가요? For 오늘 더워요. 남동생은 똑똑한가요? For 남동생은 똑똑해요. 저 사람은 한국 사람인가요? For 저 사람은 한국 사람이에요. 네, 그럼 10시 반까지 갈게요. So, 네, okay, 그럼, then, 10시 반까지. So we learned 10시 반 means 10:30, and 까지 here is a particle that marks the end point or deadline. So it can be translated as by a certain time or until a certain time. 9시까지 끝내야 돼요. I have to finish it by 9 o'clock. 9시까지 영화를 봤어요. I watched the movie until 9 o'clock. So 10시 반까지 here means by 10:30. And 갈게요. The reason why the customer used the verb 가다 instead of 오다 is due to the clear distinction between these two verbs in Korean. So from the customer's perspective, she's not currently at the salon, so she needs to go there. But from the hairdresser's perspective, she is already at the salon. So they would tell the customer to 오세요, right? To come by 10:30 because the hairdresser is currently at the salon, right? So that's why the customer said 갈게요 using 가다 verb. 을게요 is a future tense ending. And I'm sure you know 을 거예요 future tense ending. And to compare the two, in this context, saying 을게요 sounds more natural, appropriate, and also politer. And it's not because it's a politer expression, but more because 을게요 has its own specific context where it can be used. It is usually used to inform the listener that you will do something when you find that information pertains to the other person. And if you'd like to learn more details about 을게요 ending, please watch the video and the card that appears on the upper right side. Or you can also check the description box. 한 분만 하시는 거죠? Here, 분 is an honorific counter for people. And when counting small number of things or people, we use native Korean numbers. So for one person, you can combine 하나, the native number for one, and then combine it with 분, in which case it becomes 한 분. Because 하나, when combined with a counter, it changes to 한. For more details about the Korean counters, watch the video and the card that appears on the video, or you can also check the description box. 만 is a particle that means only, so 한 분만, only one person. And 하시는 거죠 is a combination of 하시다, 는 거예요, and 예요 ending is replaced with 조 sentence ending. And so here, 하시다 is 하다's honorific verb, so 하다 means to do, and here it refers to doing your hair. And 는 거예요, she used 는 거예요 form to ask a question. Actually, she could also ask 한 분만 하세요 by directly conjugating the verb in present tense. But by using 는 거예요 in a question, it can make the question either sound softer or it also more strongly implies that you are confirming the information, which is the case in this context. And 조 is a question ending that's also for confirmation, and it's kind of like asking, is it right or isn't it? 성함이 어떻게 되실까요? 성함 is the honorific form of 이름, but 성함 is usually used for like customers or people you don't know well. And in more casual settings, such as with a language exchange partner or in environments that you don't necessarily have to be too polite, it's perfectly fine to ask 이름이 어떻게 되세요? And here, noun 이가 어떻게 되세요 means what's your noun? And a more direct way to ask is noun 이가 뭐예요? Like what is noun, right? But 어떻게 되세요 is a politer way to ask. And here as well, 되실까요 is not a grammatically correct expression. You can either say 되세요 or 되시나요. 심효정이요. It's also okay to say 심효정이에요 by using 이다 verb. And that would mean it's 심효정. But when making an answer that involves only a noun 이요 form is quite common too. Sometimes simply responding with 이요 instead of 이에요 can sound a bit rude, but it's acceptable when providing brief information in response to a question. So for example, 그 문제의 답이 뭐예요? 10이요. 한국의 수도는 어디예요? 서울이요. You can respond in this manner. And in this context, the hairdresser is not asking for my name out of personal curiosity, but rather to check if my name is recorded in their system. And since I'm providing a short piece of information, which is my name, it's perfectly fine to simply respond with 이요 rather than 이에요. 오신 적 있으세요? 오시다 plus 은 적 있다. So 오시다 is 오다's honorific form. And 은 적 있다 is an expression that expresses your past experience. Like I have done that or I have been there. So this person is asking whether you have come here, whether the customer has come here before. 네, 있어요. If you have that experience, you can answer to that question with 있어요. And if not, if you don't have the experience, you can say 없어요. 고객님, 핸드폰 뒷자리가 어떻게 되실까요? Earlier, we learned that the words 손님 and 고객 both mean customer. So when addressing a customer, you can say 손님, or you can also add 님 to 고객 and say 고객님. 핸드폰 means cell phone. Actually, a more correct spelling and a more correct word would be 휴대폰. But in everyday life, 핸드폰 is generally used to refer to your phone. 뒷자리 is a combination of 뒤, which means back, with 시읒 받침 plus 자리. So 자리 means seat or position, but in the context of numbers, it refers to the place value of digits. So just remember that 뒷자리 means the last digits of a number, and 앞자리, 앞 means front, means the first digits of a number. So the Korean phone numbers are usually in this format, 010, the first four numbers and the last numbers. So these first four are often referred to as 앞자리 and the last four 뒷자리. 260 하나요. When saying a phone number in Korean, we use Sino-Korean numbers. But did you notice that I used the native Korean number 하나 instead of the Sino number 1 for 1? This is because 1 can sometimes be mistaken for 이 and vice versa, especially over the phone. So to avoid this confusion, 1 is often replaced with 하나 and 이 with 둘 when saying phone numbers. 심효정 고객님이시라고 했죠? So actually, 심효정 고객님이라고 하셨죠 is a more grammatically accurate one. So let's go with this one. So 심효정 고객님, it's my name, and she's referring to me as 고객님, customer, to sound polite. And here, this 이라고 part is a quotation grammar. For details of the quotation grammar of Korean, you can check the video in the card that appears on the upper right side. And for now, I will focus on explaining 이라고 하다, this quotation grammar specifically. So when quoting a sentence that ends with 이다, you can mark the sentence with 이라고. So if the noun that goes with 이다 ends with a vowel, you add 라고. If it ends with a consonant, you add 이라고. And then add 하다, which means to say in this context. So it literally means someone says this sentence. So 심효정 고객님이다. You are customer 심효정. This is a quoted sentence. So 심효정 고객님 이라고, 고객님 ends with a consonant. So you mark the sentence with 이라고, not 라고. And 하시다 is conjugated in past tense. So 하셨, you said, right? You said this. And 조 is a question ending. We learned, right? It's for confirming the information. So it's kind of like saying, right? Is this correct? So you said that you are customer 심효정. Is it right? So she's confirming my name again. 일단 10시 반으로 예약 도와드릴게요. 일단 means first of all or for now. And its implication is that you will do something first and see how it goes. So the customer might make a reservation and then cancel it later on, right? So by saying 일단, she means to say she'll make a reservation for me first, whatever happens later on. And 10시 반으로, we learned all the necessary grammar, so let's skip this. 예약, reservation, 도와드릴게요. 도와주다 means to help, and its honorific form is 도와드리다. And there's another honorific form of 도와주다, which is 도와주시다. And the difference between these two is that 도와드리다 is used when you're showing respect to the person receiving help, whereas 도와주시다 is used when showing respect to the person providing help. And in this context, the hairdresser is showing respect to the customer who is the receiver of her help. So it's correct to use 도와드리다, not 도와주시다. Great job finishing this lesson, guys. If you need additional explanations on some of the grammar points we touched on, feel free to check the links in the description box, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Keep it up!